G'day there, Signets and Swanlings. 2012 Premiership player Nick Smith here. It's my pleasure, as always, to introduce a bevy of bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club, brought to you by Noddy and Stevo, a pair of red and white tragics. So pop on the kettle and settle in as the boys had an in-depth chat about the Swans' last game, the Swans' next game, and a little bit about footy too. This is Nick Smith signing off until next week's episode. But in the meantime, remember, be good to your bloods and they'll be good to you.
Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods. My name is Chris, and with Noddy away and also a number of technical difficulties, we don't welcome up any other members. It's just me by myself. So welcome back to ABOB. And in this episode, number 50, we'll be chatting about the round 21 win over the Roos at Marvel, as well as the huge game against the Pies this Sunday at the sellout SCG. So, as always, fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved bloods. So last Sunday afternoon, our Sydney Swans defeated the North Melbourne Kangaroos by 38 points, with us scoring 18-18, 126 to their 13-10, 88. So first impressions, Chris, what do you think of that? Good question, Chris. Well, look, I personally think the Kangas put on a pretty good game. I didn't think they were playing like the last place with an anchor kind of team that they are. And although the scoreline is convincing with us 38 points, and that should be 80, 90 points ahead, the Kangas did put on a little bit of pressure, and they did make a competition of it all. And really, it was kind of a good game because this could have been an easy runaway game, and we may not have gotten the test that we needed for the next couple of games and leading into finals. So a bit of competition is always wanted and warranted and needed at this time of the year. So pretty happy with that. I really felt that the Swannies didn't quite let up the pressure, with the exception being that last quarter where we did take our foot off the gas. And really the second and third quarters were the ones for us. We looked very, very sharp, very good. And we got down and dirty and did what we had to do to make it happen. So particularly happy with that. One of the other things I'd probably say was Larky did score 7 goals on us, 7-0 behinds. Just a perfect game for a forward, and him taking away all the chocolates with the coach's vote. So of those goals that he kicked, probably 2.5 of them were kind of a bit gifted from the referee's perspective, but nonetheless, that still left him with about 5 goals that he scored in our defence, with Tommy taking him initially from memory and then Rampy rolling over to him and not having that much more success anyway. So a bit of a tricky one, not really sure what to do with that. I didn't think that anyone played particularly bad, but he just seemed to be in the right place, a bit bigger, a bit faster. And of course, he kicked straight. That could have easily have been, 3-4, which would have been a day in itself, but he did kick 7 straight. So, that's kind of good of a young forward. And hopefully that's not a sign of things to come with our backline. So we move on to key takeaways and stats of the game as our favorite bit here in the ABOB potty. The tackles inside 50 were the biggest number that I felt that really showed what our team was all about. We were plus 13 there in that statistic, 18 versus their 5. So that's the kind of Swans brand of football that we are really driving on, and that's given us a lot of success lately. So I'm very happy with the way that kind of went. At least we're keeping that brand going regardless of what team is ahead of us. It seems like we've got a game plan and we're executing that game plan, and that's really what you want to see as you're leading into the finals. So that was pretty tidy. Unfortunately, still not getting those 4 quarters together, as I mentioned earlier. And if we had really pushed that fourth quarter and really kept that percentage high, we'd be sitting in third on percentage. So the percentage, I think we've said a couple of times in the potty over the last few weeks in particular, it makes an enormous difference, and it will make a difference this year given how close a lot of these teams are, and has made a bit of a difference in the last couple of years. So it's really something that you don't pay too much attention to in the middle of the year, but as you get to the spiky end, all of a sudden it becomes important. And I think this game would have been nice to have padded out that percentage. So wondering what we can do there. We're going to play Collingwood this week, and we'll go through that in a second, but there's quite a lot to consider on the percentage front, and Collingwood, I don't think is going to be our opportunity to pad that out. So really got to be winning them. Really got to be winning them at this point. The other thing we'd say in the key takeaways and stats would be that the speed going into inside 50 was pretty tidy. We weren't messing around with getting that inside 50. We have muddied up a bit. We have in the past played around with the ball a bit too much and wasted opportunities on a one-on-one or a pocket of space that we could have kicked into to give the forwards a good opportunity. And we haven't taken that earlier this year. And that's kind of as a fault of the speed that we're getting out of our back line. But this time we are going well. We're getting it out into that 50 in a nice way. We're putting a lot of pressure onto those backs, the opposition's backs, to have to do something. And we're getting that ball in there and really giving our forwards a good opportunity. So pretty nice to see that. And I think that's something that was arguably missing from earlier in the year. And as we get closer to that spiky end, hopefully putting that together. So that's one thing that I took away from this particular game. And then outside the inside 50 tackles and just tackles generally, we were plus 21. So 81 tackles to their 60, which is a good ratio and being consistent with us lately, that 80 to 100 mark. It's been pretty good. But outside of those stats, a pretty even game. So as I said earlier, it did seem like the Kangaroos came to play, and that's the second time this year against us. So it's, like I said, grand, we won the game, and that's what you want to see. You want to get those biscuits. But I didn't think that we played a bad game in order for us to have not crushed them. I just think we just didn't kick straight, and that's the thing in itself. So pretty happy with all of those things together. So one thing I did want to raise in this point in the key takeaways, though, is how Collingwood does play a similar style with the speed of getting inside 50s and that 50 tackle pressure. And just pressure around the ball generally. And so these two styles, our style and their style, is going to come up to its head this weekend, and I cannot wait. But I'll get that in a bit, and let's just go over a couple of little things here with where we are on the ladder after this win. So we are now, 14 wins and 6 losses, just behind Melbourne and just ahead of Brisbane. And we're purely there from percentage. We've got a decent percentage, not as good as Melbourne. And so Melbourne, us, and Brisbane all in the same points. So any one of these games that happens, any blowout game, even if all teams win, can just shake up that top 4. And the top 4, as we know, gives you second chance and is almost imperative in order to go deep into the finals. So pretty important game, next couple of games ahead for all 3 of those teams. And so it's a standard thing that you would say, but there's no doubt at all that, between Collingwood, Melbourne, ourselves, and Brisbane, we are playing finals football from this last weekend forward. Every one of those teams can get in the top 4 or lose top spot if we lose a couple of games there and lose a bit of percentage. So it's going to be finals football moving forward, which is unbelievably exciting as a football fan and unbelievably terrifying as a Swans fan, because we want our team to do as best they can. It's going to be some absolute heart knockers coming up, I think. And if you don't have your defibrillator close by for the next few weeks, I recommend buying one and doing some online lessons, because this is something that's probably going to be worthwhile having a look at. But if we move down to the run home, there's not a whole lot ahead of us, as we all know. We've got ourselves secured our 13 wins, and this all locks us into the finals. And that's what Noddy and I have been saying for some time. From here, it's all about striving for that double chance. So Collingwood ahead of us, next game, coming second on the ladder. Been playing a brand of football that's super exciting, and that's the big game ahead of us. And then thereafter, we've got St Kilda away, I believe at Marvel. It would be a Marvel for St Kilda. And they've played hot and cold football for a little while there. And so we don't really know what to expect of them. But those 2 games, we win those games, we pretty much assure ourselves of a top 4 finish. So that's what the game is all about right now. That's really where we want to be. It is a scary time right now for all the teams, and the fans are part of them. Okay. So, what were our favourite moments for the game that's just passed against the Roos? Well, firstly, you can't go past Buddy's right foot snap. That was cool. Not too many in his career, but as Noddy said to me, that it gets mentioned often enough that, oh, look, Buddy kicked one on his right. That never happens. And then as it turns out, he did one not too far off ago. So he definitely favors the left foot by, I don't know, 97% over the 3%. I'm just making these numbers up, these are statistics. I will put that caveat there. But he does occasionally kick himself a goal with that right foot. So we know he can. And during the broadcast in the interview, he actually mentioned that he'd been practicing, which is pretty cute of him. And he looked pretty chuffed, right? When he kicked that goal with his right foot, despite him kicking over 1,000 goals, he still looked like a guy who just kicked his first. And I'm like, oh, that's cute, buddy. That's nice of you. I mean, he's on his way to retirement, kicked over 1,000 goals, a modern legend, living legend that he is. And still getting pumped about kicking his goals with his right foot. So that's pretty sweet to see. Excuse me. The other one, that favorite moment that I really, really loved was Logan's beautiful little quick handball to Hayward that was running past the play. So the ball kind of scrambled in. I think it just hit over the heads of Hayward and perhaps Papley and someone else and a couple of the Roos. And Logan attacked the ball at full speed. Nice, grabbed it beautifully, and then just a really very, very quick and perfect touch to Hayward, who was running at an angle not away from goal, but running at an angle of goal, and then his right foot snap to score that goal, and that was really nice. So, and Logan, on a general sense, and we'll talk about him in a moment, but he's been playing quite nice football lately. He's been really, I know it's his first game kind of back, but he's doing those little things quite well. He's doing his tackles, he's getting his pressure on. And it's not just about him kicking goals. We had a position in there for your bells, your wrongs, for your, oh my goodness, how have I forgotten that other gentleman's name? That's going to kill me. But I don't see, so his kind of style of play is really doing the whole team a world of good. And I really hope that he gets it, or that he keeps his spot. So he's hoping he keeps it because, we all know and we all totally agree that he's going to be a superstar. It's just a matter of time. So that was nice of Logan. The other moment of the game that I thought was hilarious was Blakey's clanger from the goal square. So Blakey's taking a kick out these days, took the kick out, kicked it straight to a Roo. Like, it couldn't have been more set up. I don't know if there was some bets behind that or something that we'll find out in a few weeks' time. But either way, Blakey just kicked it straight at the bloke. For whatever reason, that kick was, what, I don't know, 40 meters out at a bit of an angle, nothing serious, but they decided to square off the ball to someone standing at about 40 meters and right in front. And it was a terrible idea because our team was right onto it. I think we had Rampy and Florent from memory. I may be wrong. Both of them just descending that player in that squared off position and just shut them down. Got the ball to ground, play on. We rolled over to our 50, inside 50, with a nice set of movements out to the wing initially and straight down the line. And Papley got himself a mark and then kicked a goal from about 40 out. So it was just a bit of a testament to that pressure is relentless in our 50, and whatever you do, you're not going to get it. So you're not going to get a cheap one. So that was nice to see. I'm glad that no one walked away from it or turned their back like our boy Stevenson did. So that's something I'll probably address right now. Actually, now I haven't written it down, but they're just the Roos are in a world of hurt for a bunch of reasons, and you don't need a young kid that you're paying the overs for to be turning his back around and just refusing to defend. And it's just a bad look. It's just a bad look for him, bad look for the team. They're trying him in defense, and a bit more these days, and effectively making him defend, making him work harder. Like, there's no doubt that he's got some talent. We've seen it with Collingwood. He definitely has talent. But there must have been something in it that Collingwood let him go so cheaply. He didn't have that drive or something, and the Roos bit. So Either way, I hope he turns it around because the game's better when you've got better footballers out there, and you don't need that kind of view out there because kids, don't turn your back on the ball. Basically, don't turn your back on the opponent. Football 101. I'm no Horst Longmire, but football 101. You're better off facing the bloke with the ball. That's just something that I've appreciated over my years. Alrighty. So enough rambling by me. If we are moving on to the A Bob medal. So this is our equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal. The Bevies' best bloods this week in 3, 2, 1 points order were Warner, Parker, and then Mills with the 1 point. So with a few honourable mentions, but let me just start off with our boy Warner. So Warner's been on a tear, had a somewhat couple of quiet weeks, but he's right, not even quiet weeks, just standard weeks for the young kid. And he's come out there and just started blowing guys out apart again. So 11 scoring involvements, 3 goals, 2 behinds, 20 disposals, 4 tackles, 25 pressure racks, best on ground with Parker. That's a big one. And 11 score involvements, best on ground with Heaney. So score involvements, pressure, tackles, the goals, just a really, really fantastic game by Warner from both ways. Probably still is not that 100% defensive player, that two-way player that would define him as being, one of the better players on the ground, but he is absolutely killing it. And if he keeps this up, maybe Damien Barrett was right. He does have a Brownlow ahead of him. He's just doing incredible stuff with the football and without it, more so with it. But yeah, very, very, very tidy stuff from Water in only his, third year. So unbelievable stuff from the young man. The 2 points this week went to Parker. 9 tackles, 29 touches, 29, that's best on the Swans, 5 clearances. Just a huge game again by Parker and just doing both things, just playing tough around the ball, moving it well, putting, and the little things, shepherding his man, giving some distance between the ball carrier and himself and the tackler where he could, just doing Parker things. And he's just continued to be this insanely consistent player his whole career. We say it week in, week out. I'm getting bored of saying it, Parker. The consistency is just incredible. So to have him with the 2 points, well deserved, and just another cracking game in Parker's arsenal. It seems like he's got infinite amount of them in his pocket. Last one with the 1 point. Now this one could have gone a few different ways. We've got Millsy here. Hickey could have easily taken it. Heaney could have had a point as well. Buddy kicked 4. He could have had it as well. We went with Mills just because he did absolutely everything everywhere to be the perfect player on the ground wherever he was. One-on-one contests, in amongst the mix, spreading the ball around nicely. Just all of those things he did perfectly. Throw into the mix 23 pressure racks, 12 contested possessions, 23 touches, 5 tackles, 4 inside 50s, 5 clearances, 73% disposal efficiency. Slightly easier out of that little halfback moment, but Millsy just doing a perfect game as the captain's been doing this whole year. And again, the sign of an elite player is that consistent week in, week out effort and ability that they give. Let's talk about Joey in a moment. And Mills is doing exactly that. And I've seen a couple of articles this week from, I think Lingy actually said something that he's probably the best two-way mid in the game. I dare say, not having to watch all the teams every single game this year, I would definitely put my hand up and say I'd agree pretty closely with that. But yeah, this week is another example of that. And so I'm very happy to give Millsy that 1 point, whereas a couple of those other fellas probably a little unlucky. But, there's only one biscuit and there's a lot of big men. So we can only give one away. All right. So in the honourable mentions, we've got a few different players, and I won't hammer on these for too long. But the first one would go out to Hayward. 6 tackles, second for the Swannies, kicked 1 goal, 2 behinds. And more importantly, just a really good effort with contests and some really fantastic contested marks and just good positioning. And part of the reason why I think he should get an honourable mention and a little bit of extra love this week is that he's been doing this a little bit more often this last few weeks, where he's kind of playing what I deem like the Reedy game, which is positioning himself in the perfect place, putting himself in a contest when a contest needed to be made. So if there's a few people going for the ball, he'll throw his body into it. And more likely than not, he'll get a hand on the ball. And it's just really good in the air. But it's more of his positioning and just timing of his jump, knowing what the game is doing, knowing where he needed to be for the game. He was the coach's pet for a long time there, Horses mentioned. And it's really starting to come fruition if that's the truth, because he's just really clever. A really clever kid. And I say kid, God, he's played like over 100 games or whatever, but he's just a really wonderful, wonderful player. And playing that Reedy style game, as I said, which is just positioning, contesting, getting these nice marks here and there, kicking a couple of goals when he needed to. He's just been perfect. So big stuff from Hayward. He deserves a lot of love, I feel, of recent. Logan is the other one I want to mention. 2 goals, 2 behind, 6 tackles. So that's great out of a tall. 4 tackles inside 50, second in the game, and just seems to be getting bigger every week. Not only in his impact on the game, but also his physical size. He's starting to look pretty good. And if anyone's interested, I did notice that his hair is growing back from above the knee, which is something that's interesting to some of us, but not everyone. But nonetheless, Logan is really coming to his own, I feel. He's had some few weeks away where Amadi's kept that spot. And Amadi doing his job, doing his job, getting tackle, pressure, throwing his body into the mix. But I think I feel kind of a little bit bad for saying this. I don't know why I feel bad for saying this, but I think that polish exists with Logan that is just not quite there for Amadi, despite Amadi being a excellent player that would walk into most sides. And we're just a little bit happy with the amount of tours we got. We know we're going to have a big competition for tours this year. And Logan, I think we all agree, is kind of the future of that forward line. And to give him as much time as we can is good. And if he can stay and be important to that forward line and stick to his tackle pressure and play in the game that he needs to play in order for the team to win, he'll always have a space there, despite him not necessarily having to kick a bag every week. So good to see Logan get in there, despite playing against on paper a weaker opponent in the Roos, but nonetheless, Logan played a good game on his way back. The other 2 mentions, Hickey and Heaney. Starting with Hickey, very strong ruck performance. I've been a little bit down on Hickey lately, not because I don't love the guy. I think the guy's incredible, just because his impact with the boys not been quite Hickey enough, if that's a term. He's not quite been the tall Jesus of the past. He has maybe been locked himself into that room and not rolled the rock away. But he's 9 clearances, best on ground, 20 disposals, and 5 inside 50s for the big man. And not only just that, not only doing it around the ball and with it, also in the ruck contests, he had 73 contests at 38 hitouts at 52%. And I've mentioned this in the past, about 30% is a kind of standard offering. Anyone that's starting to dominate the competition in the ruck is looking at about 40, 50, 60. Above 60, you're like insanely dominant. That's the kind of like Gorn and Grundy stuff that you'd see a couple of years ago. And at 50, I just forgot it, 52%. At 52% for Hickey. Yeah, a really good sign. Against Goldie, he's no cheap ruckman. And if you watch the game again, Goldie was really making sure that there was no cheap ones in it. And Hickey had to work for it. So he did a great job there. So big raps on Hickey. Good to see Tor Jesus up and about. The next one, Heaney. Heaney a little bit stiff not to get the extra biscuit, but 11 scoring involvements. When he couldn't get a hanger, he brought it to ground nicely for the Crummers. So he was very, very nice. He did very Heaney things and he pushed himself. He was running hard everywhere. He was getting the Ks up. Lots of tackle pressure. He was not letting up. And he looked like, to me, the kind of player that was trying to force himself into some form. maybe he saw this as an opportunity to like force himself into that superstardom that he'd started off the season with. And he was really relentless. Like, he was not being cheap about it. So the extra 5 tackles go with it as well. But yeah, Heaney doing the Heat things. The Heat Heaney just continues to be consistent, but also if he can bring himself up to superstardom mode as we're going into finals, that would also do. So he's looking forward to Heaney a bit more. So coaches' votes that have come in: Larkey at 10, Warner at 7, Hickey 4, Parker 3, Davis Uniac at 3, Buddy 2, and Heaney 1. I'm just happy I said Davis Uniac properly because I was scared of that as it was coming up. So yeah, the bevy not too far off what was going on there, but we did mix it up there with Millsy coming in over the other 2 gentlemen. So as we go into the hot topics of the week, we talk about our injuries, any changes to the side considered, the VFL, the AFL, and just news generally. So let's start with a big one. Joey Kennedy has retired. Now, I put a video out yesterday about this, of just how it's hard to say anything about Joey, because no matter what you say, it's just not going to be enough, because you can't really convey how incredible of a player and just as a bloke he seems to be, So massive hole in the team. Noddy and I have discussed at length at the beginning of the year of how to use him, of where his best positioning is, and he seemed to have found himself a whole new role there on the wing and started really making some impact again, being able to still contest the ball, which is his trait, and he's one of the best that has ever been at exactly that. But also, being able to give something back to the team. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the best kick in the world, but he's a super smart footballer. He's tough as nails, and he's an absolute leader on the field. So he did exactly that. He did that for the beginning of the year before he pulled his hammy. And then at that point, I think we all knew that this may be the last time we ever see him. Went through the VFL, went midi sub for 2 weeks from memory, and then pulled his hammy again in the VFL. And this time, when I understand, the other hammy. And at that point, you're like, that's it. I'm an old man now. I need to wrap this up. And unfortunately, he's called time on the career. And if you've seen the video when he's talking to the team and he's tearing up, and if you're a Swans fan and you're not tearing up, you may be broken inside. Go see someone, because that was tear-jerking all the way through. Horse crying. I didn't know horses could cry. I thought that was medically impossible, but he looked fantastic. He looked so happy for him making that decision. At the same time, it's just being so sad for his mate, So here we are without a Joey Kennedy, trying to find things to say that is going to give some weight to how important he was for the team, and it's near impossible. So, I mean, what can we say? Joey Kennedy hopefully sticks around in the team as a coach, alongside people like McVeigh, Laidler, maybe helps out in the coaching ranks over there, the VFL. That'd be sweet. Maybe just helps out with the young boys and teaches them what's going on. But the son of a great, who was the son of a great, playing for a different team in a different state in order to get some game time. Not only did he get some game time, crush records along the side, and a premiership, 3 Brownlow, 3 Bob Skiltons, 3 All-Australians, premiership, as I said, some league leading stats to go with it, mate. I can't say enough about JPK, so just leave that there. The man's the man. Alrighty, JPK, try to get over it. I will do my best. So the Buddy contract is the other thing to probably talk about in these hot topics. Horse's comment. Well, firstly, let me quickly wrap it up. The whole Buddy saga, it started to become an animal of its own, and started to snowball. And I don't know whether it was the Buddy camp that just decided to slow it down, or whether it's the Swans themselves who went, we don't need this distraction. So the media is still kind of forcing everyone to talk about it, but he's been putting it off for some time, like talking about it anywhere. He's a veteran at talking about contracts, so he knows what's going on. And Horse's comment on the weekend was a weekend or maybe Monday or so was pretty nice, and I think it gave a lot of explanation of maybe where we should be heading as Swans fans generally and as the AFL. Horse said the decision for him, buddy, postseason. Sorry, let me start again. The decision for him postseason is about whether he plays on or not. I think in the end, we just sit back and enjoy Lance for the superstar that he is. I am certainly going to enjoy it. So, two things from this. One is the decision for him postseason is about him plays on or not. That sounds like retirement talk. Doesn't sound like contractual talk. But I think what he's conveying here as well is that the first thing is he needs to know whether he wants to play on or not. Then we talk about contracts. And then we talk about where he plays. That's the way I read it. I'm sure other people out there have taken different opinions of how to read that one. But I read it as in Buddy just wants to know whether he even wants to play or not, and whether 500 grand for a year is worth his trouble. God, imagine saying that. But yeah, so he's asking for 700-800. Swans are offering supposedly anywhere between 5 and 6, and the league average is about 500 something. So, and we're looking at it like we deserve a discount considering we gave him this enormous contract for as long as he did, and he didn't play a couple of years amongst it all. But I mean, that's football. So let's see where we end up. But I think in the end, let's just enjoy his time while we have him, irregardless of where the contract lies, irregardless of where he goes and plays after the game, and if he does play after this year. And let's just go as deep in the finals as we possibly can with Buddy on his potentially last year. So let's see where we end up there. VFL. So just very quickly on the VFL, and it kind of touches on any changes we'd make in the team this week. VFL Sydney defeated North by 20 points, 95-75 down at Arden Street. So we are now equal fourth with Collingwood on the ladder. Ooh. So goals by Marty, 3 goals, 2. Wicks, 3 goals, 2. Wicks is the other bloke I was thinking of. Wicks, 3 goals, 2. Bell, 2 goals. McLean, 2 goals. Gussie, 1 goal. Sinclair, 1-1. And Lads with 0 and 3. Laidler, love that kid, old man. But Amadi, far out, man. Every time he goes down to the VFL, he's just way too good. He's kicking 2, 3, 4 most days. And I think he's kicked the most amount of goals this year in like consecutive games or something like that. He's just really, really good. Disposals, Layla with 28, unbelievable. Wicks 28, Bell 27, Corey Warner 25, Gould 24, Cunners at 23. Yeah, so plenty of big numbers there with Layla. Get off the field, mate. Wicks and Bell 28 and 27 respectively. So maybe there's a position for them in the centers with JPK heading out. It's hard to imagine, and no one's going to be able to play that role. But some hard nuts like Wicks and Bell, maybe they can, if not do it, they can have a crack at it. And let's give them every opportunity to do so. But it's nice to see Corey Warner apparently just absolutely killing it in the VFL. So yeah, we've got 2 Warners coming up, and apparently the third's even better. So let's see what ends up there. Let's hopefully we can move the family over. And Gould with 24. So I know the whole Swans crowd has been asking for Will Gould to be in the team, and it's getting pretty deep into the season. So let's just assume he's not going to get his crack on there. I think if anyone steps out, if we get injuries, there may be a question for it. But God, if it's not next week to blood him, it's not going to happen. And Cunners will probably be the first person that comes in, and any one of those injuries that comes in that back line. So find out what happens there, and maybe Sam Reid helps out for the tours if need be. So I don't see us making any changes to the AFL team for the remainder of the season, outside of the situation that's been going on with Logan and Amadi. I think it's whoever's playing hot, and whoever seems to be that's just playing better, that week is the one that's going to get the game time. So otherwise, there's no changes to make in the team. I don't see. Laddams has got an opportunity to come back. Again, if he doesn't come back this week, it has to be next week. He has to get some game time before we go into finals. We only got to play a couple games with the dual ruck situation going on, and it takes some time to get used to it. Roll one up forward, one in the middle. Don't run harder, not as often. Drag your ruckmen and your tall guys a bit further away from their positioning, and you get some good roll on. But I don't see any other changes happening. So if you disagree, let me know, because I'm baffled as to who else you would be able to drag into the team at this late into the season. On the AFLW news, we got some good news here, actually. Talking AFLW podcast has been released by the Sydney Swans, available Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I don't know all the other places, but those two, wherever you hear this particular podcast. And it's very, 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 very good. The Sam Moyston conversation with the first episode is genuinely about the very beginning of the AFLW, and it's fantastic. And I strongly recommend to everyone to listen to it before the season starts and just start getting proper excited about this AFLW competition now that we have the Swans in it. So strongly recommend that. Get to it straight away. The other thing, AFLW news, is that the tickets are on sale as at today, 10 a.m. for the foundation attendance members. You can get yourself tickets, friends. Go out there and grab those tickets. First game, 27th of August at North Sydney Oval. It's going to be a cracker. I am genuinely thinking that it's going to be close to a sellout with the amount of hype that the Swans have put around this game. It's going to be fantastic. So pumped about that game. So make sure you get your tickets and get out there. So that's the AFL news for this week. Okay, now to the game ahead. Oh my God. Where do I start? Sydney, Collingwood. Sydney's coming fourth. Collingwood coming second. Collingwood's got 15 wins, 5 losses on 106.3%. Now, that 106.3% is going to be their downfall, but it's also the reason why they've won 11 games straight. Their ability to win and keep a close game close is phenomenal. Like really, really incredible stuff. Of the wins that they've had, in the top 8, they've beaten Freo, Carlton, the D's, and actually the D's twice. So Carlton, Freo, and the D's twice. Of their losses of the top 8, they've lost against Geelong and Brisbane. Both of those games in the top 8 were round 3 and 5, and they weren't the Collingwood that they are now. I don't know how they changed it up, but by about mid the bye round, just about, then they started turning it on, and it's just been a very different new outfit of Collingwood that we've seen for some time. We've beat up more bottom 4 sides than they have, but we've also won against just as many, just one less top 8 side so far. We've beaten Geelong, Melbourne, St Kilda, and Freo. And St Kilda, no, actually now that St Kilda should be not there. So we've only beaten the 3 top 8 sides, whereas Geelong's beaten 4 of them, or 3 of them, these twice. So I don't really know what to say here. Like, outside of the 2 teams just being, coming up to the peak of their powers almost, what else do you say about how important this game is? Like, it's on paper, right? Second versus fourth, 2 games out before finals, percentage in the mix. This is ramping up to be the most incredible game of football for not even a Swan or Collingwood supporter, but just football fans anyway. So, yeah, look, us 120%, 127% rather, is huge. And, we really got to beat Collingwood in order to secure or even get close to securing this top 4 spot. So it's such an important game. It's a sellout. It's going to be incredible. So after Collingwood, we've got St Kilda, as I was mentioning. I don't really know what else to say about St Kilda. They kind of play hot and cold football. Obviously, they play incredibly with Paddy Ryder on the pitch. But, yeah, the only thing I can say about that game is that it's away and at Marvel, and we play decently in Marvel, and I hope he does all right. And Hanbury, it would not surprise me if Hanbury comes out next week and retires. And that might be a retirement lap for old Hannahs and JPK. So that'd be, fantastic considering how much history those two have together. And how important they were for the Swans for so long. So that's the only thing I can say about St Kilda. But Collingwood, after the Sydney game, have Carlton. Now, at one point a couple of weeks ago, I would have been like, oh, fantastic. They've got a tough game ahead of them. But Carlton have lost Cripps. Cripps has been done for, uh, an unduly contest. It's just knocked some bloke out, and now he's sitting out for 2 weeks, and he's going to contest. He's already contested, now he's appealing. They're basically trying desperately to keep their top 8 hopes alive, and they're throwing everything at it. So QCs, rows of QCs is lined up at Carlton headquarters to try to save their year, really. But no Cripps, and it's going to be, and no Georgie Hewitt as well. So it's going to be a really tough gig for them for the next couple of weeks, and especially against Collingwood. Yeah, I don't see their chances being very high. So hey, let's hope that Carlton does the number, despite not having 2 of their balls in amongst it all. So that's what that is there. Okay, what else about the quick preview against Collingwood? Look, our Swannies are on a 5-game win streak. That's impressive in itself. The Pies on an 11-game win streak. 11. Their last loss was in round 9 against the Bulldogs. But an important point, their last 7 wins have been by 11 points or less, so less than 2 goals. They play an insane brand of football that, dare I say it, used to be very easy to hate Collingwood. Oh, so easy. But it's starting to change. Eddie Maguire's not involved them anymore, and all of a sudden, hey, they're not so bad. But it's just the style of game that they play. It's manic, it's fast, it's aggressive, it's impressive. It genuinely is. And so you'd not be a football fan if you weren't there to admire it. So yeah, pretty impressive stuff. And another couple of things you kind of love about it, about the way that they go about it. Ed Langdon said, what did he say? There was it all duck or no dinner. Now you have to excuse me, ethnic boy from Campbelltown. I've never heard that saying in my entire life. I had to Google it, and even then I had to Google 2 different sites in order to work out exactly what it meant. And apparently it means it's all in or nothing. Now, yeah, I mean of course that's what they do. That's also why they've won 11 games by little margins. They're throwing absolutely everything at it, and it sticks, and it's been sticking. I think that's the difference. They're kicking straight, and that's making all the difference in the game. Melbourne should have beaten them. Melbourne were the better team. Melbourne, they played way better. Statistically, they were way better. And on the eyes, they were way better, but they just couldn't get around them. They just could not put them away. They just couldn't kick straight. If they could kick straight, Melbourne wins. And could have won convincingly, but they didn't. And Collingwood gets the biscuits there. So that's stuff. So when Ed Langdon said the whole, was it no duck or no, or duck or no dinner? I'm assuming that's right. I don't know. Whatever. The fact that he said that, I don't know why anyone got up in arms. Who cares? Like, the guy says something. That's his job. But they went after him. That first touch that Ed Langdon had, Maynard, who's a unit, just drilled him into the ground, and then the Pies players around him just jumped it. And I like that. I thought that was impressive as a unit. It's stuff like that gets a footy team together, unites them together, one common cause, one conflict. Coming into finals, it's us against them. You want that kind of mentality, and so Collingwood have it. And if 11 wins straight, it's not going to do it for you by small margins. If that's not going to unite a team together, it's going to be smashing some guy who said something remotely offensive to your team, and having your 6 mates bash him as well. That's a united team. So they're a scary unit at the moment. They're a very, very scary unit. The good news is today we find out that the Pies, I won't say good news, but the Pies have the flu running across the camp. Apparently, Elliott is one of them. A few other players, McRae went up, and even the coach has been asked to go home. Do I believe this? Now, listeners of the potty will know that I'm no tinfoil hat wearing superstitious fan, but I don't think I buy this at all. I feel this is just, they had a day off, or some players had a day off. They just told some person that there's the flu going around, and all of those players miraculously and it's not COVID. They make it super clear. Oh, it's not COVID though, because if it was COVID, then protocols and they have to sit out for 2 weeks. They were very, very clear to tell us it's not COVID. But they're all got the flu. Okay, fine. I don't know if I believe it, but it doesn't really matter. It does not matter. We're just there to play. Team's got to turn up to play the best team that's going to rock up. And yeah, who cares if they got the flu or not? It will make a difference, obviously, especially Elliot, considering the tackle pressure he puts on. That's his style of game. But we just got to play. That's all that matters. So a big United Pies team and outfit is on their way over to the SCG. So let's find out what happens there. So talking about the game and their style of football, look, they bring tons of players to the contest. They force players onto the contest. They force you to kick long, and then when you do kick long, they force players into that contest there. So it's a well drilled machine in a lot of ways, in that they know where the pressure is being applied, and then so they then prepare to apply it elsewhere. And then you've got, and when it does make its way back into the centers, when they do get possession and move it across, they move it fast. And then when you've got players like Nick Dacos and Pendlebury, the brilliant Pendlebury, who's got incredible kicks and just lace out people on the chest inside 50, you can get a lot out of that. So I think Collingwood's got quite a nice game plan, but it's not without its flaws. They've been quite lucky to win a lot of these games. The Jamie Elliott goal against the Bombers, as an example, that shouldn't have been a win. Statistically, against the Demons, that shouldn't have been a win. So they are absolutely beatable, but they play a very exciting brand of football, and one that if you're not prepared for it, it would really shake you up, and you wouldn't. If you're on the ground and you're not sure what kind of football they're playing, and they come out with that, yeah, it would shake up the way you play, and you might struggle to make the most of your opportunities there. So that's kind of their style. Like I said, they're well drilled into close games. They've done it enough times. They are the best in the competition at close games at this point. So you don't want that. You want to really take it to them and keep them away from the ball at that point. So on a general sense, our stats, and let me just drag them over. So averages over the games for this year. We get more kicks, we get more marks per game. Just about 14 of each of those per game average. So, and on a general sense, we just hold the ball a little bit more. We just have a little bit more possession, a little bit more uncontested possession. That's our style of game, but at the same time, then as soon as they get the ball, we go into frantic mode, win the ball back, and then just drive it forward and just find a way to just get some good movement. We like to use our feet. We've got a lot of elite foot skills in the team right now, and so that's what we do, and that's probably our biggest thing against them. Our effective disposals is about the same. Our contested ball is about the same. Our uncontested ball is about the same. Disposal efficiency is just about the same. It's a very equal statistical balance between us, with the exception of, we've got kicked slightly more goals and slightly more behinds, and we have a bit more uncontested possession in marks anyway, more marks and more kicks in the game that they do. So yeah, look, where they do kind of beat us out a little bit is on turnovers and intercepts. So they've got the number one team in intercepts. And I think if I look it up quickly, the Swans are at fifth. I was looking at it just earlier. But we're not up there. We're basically not coming first, because there can only be one first. And Collingwood is leading that. Oh, here we go. The Swans coming 13th. So intercept players, Maynard, Moore, Howe, number one in the comp. We've got some great players. We've got Paddy and Tommy, but we're at 13th. And part of that is for opportunity, in that we don't have as many the other team doesn't have that many opportunities to get the ball in long. And from a very early time in the competition knows that's not what you do for the Swans. If you're going to bomb it up onto the head of your forward, you've got the McCartan brothers that work perfectly in unison and are going to find a way to block the player and get that mark. So it's a part of the statistics here are due of opportunity, but at the same time, you can't argue that number. First in the comp for intercepts is crazy good. And that's over, the Lever-May duo, which is, the best in the competition, arguably, albeit, May got punched in the head by his mate and had to sit up a couple games, but that might have done a number to his stats. But it's an important part of their game. It's a really important part of the game, and it doesn't necessarily go against us because our game is not quite bombing it up onto top of Buddy's head because we all know that he's not the best mark in the game. But at the same time, they'll find ways around that. So we've got to do some numbers. So I'd imagine that Clarkey probably sits on someone like a Howe and just basically works him under the ball, forces him to kick long more often than he wants to, force him to get rid of the ball faster than he wants to. So that'll be what I predict Clarkey would be, sitting on Howe, and the matchup would be nice. Howe can get up, so let's hope that Clarkey doesn't turn into a ladder overnight. That would be something important. The other thing that I'd kind of point out about the game last week for the Pies, they converted 71% scores last week. It's enormous. That's insane. So again, it was an anomaly, and statistically, they should not have won. That's not their average. Their average should be down by that, and they should have lost the game. But nonetheless, they're up there. The other thing that's important, that's particularly interesting, is Ginnivan playing further up high, basically dragging some of those forwards away from the square. And if you've watched Melbourne play, your May kind of sits there as that fullback, that full stop, and he'll just be swinging, looking for that bomb coming in, rolling in there and taking a nice intercept mark. And then May still ended up with, I think, 12 intercept marks last week, which is well over his average. But it was something that they tried up until halftime. They did a good job of it. I think May got 1 intercept mark and 2 in the second quarter, so 3 all up in that first half. And then they came out in the second half. The D's came out in the second half and adjusted themselves and put a stop to that style where trying to drag their man up further up the ground. So let's see whether we're able to, whether they play that same trick again, and whether our lads forfeit or not, or they see it coming a mile away. He's hoping they've done their homework. He's hoping I know what I'm talking about. Alrighty, so that's the Collingwood game. It's enormous. It's going to be insane. It's going to be a sellout at the SCG. It's going to probably be the biggest game we've ever had at the SCG. The last game that I could find of the biggest crowd was 46,000 at the Essendon Elimination Final in 2017. Let's not talk about the result there, but that happened. And look, 48,000 people coming down to the SCG is crazy in itself. And then once you talk about Collingwood fans, that I guess you can only describe them as numerous and belligerent, it's going to be a loud, hostile crowd. It's going to be dirty. So, Swans fans, drink that honey that morning. You're going to be screaming that afternoon. You've got to be loud. We've got to have a nice, loud SCG. Let the boys know that we're there to support them, because those numerous and belligerent Collingwood fans, they get loud as well. So let's make sure we out loud them. We've got to do our absolute best as a collective here. So, so excited. So excited about this game. Can't say enough. And look, this brings me to the outro. So as I said, this is the first time that only a single one of us in the bevy has had to do the podcast. I'm actually surprised that I hit the time here. I thought I was going to run, I was going to do this in 8 minutes, but looks like I've got enough things to talk about. So all I can say is thank you for sticking around. We'll go back to our normal two-person potty moving forward. It's just technical difficulties and work commitments have caused this to happen. But in the meantime, brings us to the end of the episode. And so on behalf of the bevy, I would love to say thank you to all the Cygnets and Swanlings out there listening in, and to make sure they keep following us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at A Bevy of Bloods, for all the fun content, updates, and announcements. But until then, up the Bloods, and can you Swannies!